Future Voices. I'm Dr. V, and this is In Depth, where we
Yes.
dig deep in the trenches of what matters.
Now, check this out. If you have not subscribed to our YouTube page, we would strongly recommend that you do that. As we grow forward, we ask that you hang out with us, grow with us. We promise to always give you a good word, keep you encouraged, and also speak the truth at all costs.
Uh-oh.
Freedom of speech is real.
It's
We
real.
mean that.
Yes.
At
Doc
all
V.
costs.
What you got for us, Doc
Hey,
V?
our topic today is freedom of speech. And one of the things we're going to be talking about, so hang out with us, we're going to be talking about at all costs. We're going to be talking about limitations. And I want to make sure we cover defamation of character because I've heard a lot of people use that and talk about being defamed. And we're going to get into that. So we're going to kind of hit all angles of speech,
Right.
freedom of speech, so that we can help ourselves.
Yes.
All right.
We
So
with you. We
starting
with
out the
you.
gate, let's get to the definition because a lot of times we think we know, but we really don't. So let's listen to the definition. Freedom of speech.
Simply put, freedom of speech is the right to express any opinions without censorship or restraint. This actually dates back to ancient Greece. So there's a word called parrhesia, pronounced just like that, and that means free speech or to speak candidly. The First Amendment doesn't specify exactly what is meant by freedom of speech, and that's what we're here to talk about tonight.
Yes. And so I like that, especially for in depth.
Yes.
And you said it comes from what word?
It comes from a word, parrhesia.
Parrhesia.
Parrhesia,
I kind of
P-A.
like that. Be careful because somebody might name their kid.
That's their choice. That's their
I
freedom.
just- I-
They have the
They have
freedom.
the freedom.
They have the freedom to do
Okay.
that.
Yeah, and listen, when we start talking about free speech, do you believe this topic is the cornerstone, I believe, of America's democracy? Don't you think?
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
That's what they say.
I'm just saying because it's been some people going through some things for just some stuff they let fall
well,
out of their mouth.
well, the
And
thing
E, I
about
think
it-
you know it well.
Yeah, because you
know,
like to try to censor me
I
all the time.
understand.
You try to censor the kid
So,
all the
Doc V,
time.
when you say cornerstone, what do you when you say cornerstone of
Well,
America?
I'm
Let's
just saying-
explain that. Like, what is a cornerstone? What does it do?
Well, I'm saying that because
It's a building block. It's supposed to be.
well, I'm saying you can't move without it. You can't stand without it. Communication. I don't care if it's because think about it. Our expression, symbols, everything we do is a form of our expression or speech or
Right, right.
communication in some way, shape, or form. So I say communication is kind of the cornerstone of America.
I got you there.
Even when we have to interact with other countries,
Yeah.
other people.
So, what happens when a cornerstone is removed or broken or torn down?
And that's kind of my angle when there's a glitch in the communication, whether it's a marriage or it's between a parent and a child, a boss and a worker, communication is very important. And
Right.
how you communicate. Just think about at a job when your supervisor says something to you, and it's really not how he said it, but it's that he said it in front of everybody.
Right.
So,
You know-
communication has to be two sides, though, right?
Yes.
So, what if only one side is being allowed to speak and the other side is being shut down?
Oh man. Yeah, I mean you can get into a lot with that because that actually happened with a woman. I can't remember. She was speaking at one of the universities, and the students in the audience start heckling her, making fun, laughing, and then it got to the point where they actually pulled the fire alarm,
Mm.
and so they shut it down.
Mm.
And I can tell you that woman. I've heard her speak a couple times since then, and she was talking about people feelings can get hurt.
Right.
You can do so much and you can push so hard and you can do things that actually hurt people. And, and as he says, and he's going to talk about at what cost, but at what cost. And those people did it. And as one student said, you're not coming on our territory saying this and our taxpayer dollars, my dollars paying for this, for you to come in here and speak and say things anti what I believe, and I have to sit here and listen.
Right.
So there's both sides, like you said. But when you shut somebody down and won't let them actually get their point out, that can cause anger and it take it to a whole nother level.
Right.
And we're going to
Right.
get into that. So I'm glad you kind of.
I want to
went there.
address something we see a lot of where only one side can speak is, our news sites, social media. If you look at a Republican site, a Republican ran site, they are going to censor everything that a Democrat says, even if it's factual. So in that aspect, you're only seeing one side of everything because they have gotten in there and shown you just exactly what they want you to see. Same thing with television, media.
Yes.
You know, there's so much bias that a lot of times only one side is speaking, both sides are speaking, but you're only hearing that one side. So I think that's a really good point.
That's good, Jill, and I'm glad you mentioned that. We're going to get into media a little later, and we know how they manipulate words and press, etc. So, but let's talk a little bit real quick because I do have an agenda, and I kind of want us to flow through this agenda. I like to get through everything.
All right.
And join us tomorrow night for the Voice of the People, and we can dig a little deeper and into your comments and your questions. So E, when you say, because I've heard you say several times, you know, at what cost? And so when we begin to say freedom of speech, and we think about where does this even come from? Our 10 amendments are, and I was
First
just going to
Amendment.
say, in
It's
our
the First Amendment,
right? And so when we start thinking about it, so just think about these 5 things. When we say our First Amendment, and we get into freedom of press, freedom to protest, freedom of religion, freedom of assembly, and freedom of speech.
At what
I
cost?
want to talk about, and that's what I was going to say.
That's
I
the
want
main
to talk
thing.
about each of them at what cost.
I mean, you can lose everything. No matter, I can hurt your feelings and you lash out because I said something that offends you. It's my opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion. I'm entitled to say what I want to say.
You are.
At at what cost though? I mean, I could lose my job. I could lose my livelihood. I could be sitting in prison. I mean, it's so many things in this world right now, and most of it is emotion driven because I hurt your feelings. Well, so I don't care about your feelings. I'm gonna say what I want to say.
I feel you.
I mean, you have to look at it like that. I don't care about your feelings
Preach.
because at the end of the day, but it's true. But at the end of the day, you don't care about mine.
Yeah.
It's come to the point, too, that I think government or state punishment for freedom of speech violation is almost rare. The even bigger punishment right now is, like you said, the social aspect, the backlash, you losing your jobs, losing, you know, we say followers like it's silly, but a lot of people make money off the people that follow them.
That's right.
So
let's look at the baby.
The baby.
Let's look at what he said
Yeah.
and lost venues.
Well,
All because he hurt somebody's feelings. At the end of the day, guess what? If I'm not allowed to speak my mind and speak my thought process without somebody saying, he's messing with me. Hey, get off your feelings.
You saying
period.
Without provoking
Yeah,
emotions,
I mean,
you
get
don't
off
care.
your feelings.
You don't care.
That's how that man feels.
Well,
but in the same thing, in the same way, you backlash at me the same way I said I come at you. Make it make sense.
Okay, so here's this definition. So Jill, you gave an awesome definition. So watch this definition. Very simple. Freedom, the free speech, freedom from government interference and sanction.
Right.
But watch this. But not freedom from repercussions, consequences, or threats. Right. And so when you start thinking about that, is it worth it at the end of the day? So when you say at all costs, one of the things that comes to mind,
at what cost? I ain't saying at all costs.
That's what I'm saying. So when you say that,
cost?
So one thing that comes to mind for me, and I mentioned this before, is road rage. Because too many times people get caught up in road rage. If that's you, calm down. You don't want to be the person having a heart attack from road rage. But people all the time can get caught up in what some idiot, let's just call it what it is, that pulls up next to you, flip you off, and now you're chasing somebody and swerving, and you got this whole road rage going on. And then next thing you know, and sad to say, I don't know the full details, but the young lady in Texas was actually gunned down, and it was because of road rage. And, you know, so just simple words. So when you say at what cost, those things come to mind for me.
And before we get off what cost, I think we are too attached to just the verbal freedom of speech. Freedom of speech also is an expression. I think you covered that right there.
Yes.
Colin Kaepernick never said a word, never said one single word, but lost his whole NFL career. Not that it hurt him, but they thought it was. He never said a word. But the thing is, like he said, what he did, he had the right to do. It was the emotions thereafter that affected his livelihood,
The three
his
brothers
money.
in the Olympics.
I'm sorry?
The three brothers that was in the Olympics. One of the most famous pitchers in
Juan Carlos,
the world.
Mhm.
They lost everything
Tommy
behind
From
that.
their expression.
Mhm.
Yes, from their
Mhm.
expression.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to look at it. It's more than just, like you said, it's verbal.
Mm-hmm.
You have, my shirt could offend you.
That's right.
My necklace could offend you.
Yeah.
So you have to look at every aspect. I mean, it's to the point where you have to even watch what you put on to go anywhere. Because a BLM shirt would offend a whole.
Right, because some places you
You can't
wear
wear.
it.
You know,
Period.
you can't wear a
Why
BLM
can't
shirt.
you?
You can't
You have the freedom. Why can't you?
because that's the
Because it's called policies.
Their
Yeah.
And
policies.
That's
That's
their
right. In
policy.
their particular place. There's some things, it's just like you go in certain government buildings. There's certain things you can't walk in that building with. I mean, your cell
Government
phone.
buildings, I will agree with.
Right. I'm
But
just
anywhere
saying,
else,
so-
why can't
Well, my
you wear it?
question is,
Yeah.
you agree with a
Policy.
government building that I can't wear a BLM shirt?
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is governmental,
said cell phone.
and we're going to get into that when we talk about
Yes.
the law versus the
Mhm,
emotions. But
mhm.
I don't want to jump. I'm going to keep with your agenda. But I got it. I'm going to answer that question.
Oh,
Hold that
okay.
question. Hold that.
I like that. But so just with that thought, E, because you have, I'm just gonna say, you have really talked a lot about at what cost. And after tonight, I don't want to hear you say that.
I'm gonna say it every time because it's the truth.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I mean-
can I jump in here real quick? So
Yes.
at what cost? Let's look at Colin Kaepernick. We're going to
Yes.
use C-Stats illustration, okay? Colin Kaepernick is a professional football player,
Yes, sir.
or he was.
He was.
Mhm.
His career, okay? So his career was ended because he decided to kneel during the national anthem
Yes.
rather than stand
Yes.
and pledge his allegiance, okay?
Mhm.
Well, he I don't think he withdrew his allegiance to the process. I think he just did his gesture in a different way.
Right.
So let's word it like that. But when you were a kid and you stayed in your mom and dad's house, I don't care if you were 17, 18, or you felt you were grown, but if you still lived in their house, you had to do what?
What
Wow,
your mama
follow
said.
the rules.
You had to
Follow-
abide
yeah.
by
That's
their
right.
rules.
That's right.
So you don't really have freedoms in certain spaces. If it's
Mhm.
your speech, if it's your perspective, no matter how you feel. When you're in somebody else's space, you accept a job, you sign on that contract, you accept the hourly wage or whatever it is. At that point, they own you.
That's right.
When you punch the clock, you have to abide by their rules.
That's right.
So
And-
that's just a perspective on what you're saying about Colin Kaepernick. And of course, the point that you're trying to make, E, is reality, but it depends on where you are.
I mean, it's
Mhm.
reality. I mean, you look at Irvin in the same way. He don't want to take the vaccination. He's standing strong on it.
Yeah.
So they actually say you can't play in these games. Okay, I got enough money. Hey, I can retire. I'm cool. But I mean, you have to understand your freedom is costly. It's
Right.
not free. Your freedom is not free at all. Period. It costs.
And I think a good way to put it too, especially with anybody that has a platform anymore, these celebrities, comedians, politicians,
Mhm.
anyone with a good majority or even a small majority of followers anymore, before you speak, you almost have to say, what is this going to cost me?
That's right.
Because if it is,
It is.
there's a whole list of people that I promise you, if you are not speaking right and politically correct, you are going to offend somebody. It's 2021. You have to ask yourself, what is this going to cost me? How important is this speech? And at what cost? Because that's reality. We are seeing it almost daily with the cancel culture, with the right now it's not just the LGBTQ people who are going
Yes, it
after
is.
Dave Chappelle. It is now the National Coalition of Black. I mean, it's
That
different
group
races.
does not exist.
But
that group does not
it does,
exist.
but listen,
That
my
group
point
does not
is,
exist.
listen, they're using that as a label to make it seem like it's covering the races.
But that group does not exist. Let's make that plain.
Okay, but let
Okay.
me get to my point.
Mhm.
If you Google it, what does it say?
That group doesn't exist.
But what's it being? Then why is the name out there? It's being used just like the BLM. People are
gonna look
associating.
it up. Let's
People
look
are
it up.
I was
associating
gonna
with
say,
it.
So we're gonna get a fact
Google
check
it.
on that
Let's
while we're
Google it.
while we're
Look at
having
that.
this
Let's Google that
conversation.
one.
But it would be
So-
like saying that what they're trying to do is make it look like it's offending more than just one group of people.
Well, I mean,
So they're
they're
saying-
going to do that because so many people are standing up
Exactly.
for David Chappelle. And if, like I said, if y'all watch any of his shows, the dude rips on any and everybody.
Every
I
race.
think that's when we get over in entertainment. Let's
Okay.
make the point right here so we can get to the next point.
Right. And so what I wanted to say real quick, so as we move through the list, freedom of religion. And so we obviously know it's there, it exists, but
Right.
it's not real.
Right.
Right. And we really see what's going on now when we start looking at the COVID, the vaccines.
Right.
I heard one firefighter, I forget how long he has been on I believe he's 20 years in, 20 or 30 years in. And here he was basically in tears because he was saying it was his last day. Somebody said, why don't you just get the vaccine? And he said, because I have a religious right. And I was thinking they have thrown that out the window totally. But he is 100% correct.
He's right.
Yes, but it doesn't matter because like James said, when you sign the line and you're saying yes to whatever these people policies are, at
Right.
that point you don't have any.
Even if they're not right, you've signed it. You've agreed to it.
It's over.
My daughter tells me at Leo they can't wear Black Lives Matter t-shirts. She knows it. It is written
You can't.
somewhere.
Yeah.
So it is a written rule, though it's not right. It's something that we signed the handbook when my daughter decided to go to school. So at some point we agreed to it, whether we knew it or not.
And you know what's real funny, and then we're gonna move on. It's real funny that they will enforce that rule
Yeah.
at a lot of schools
Oh.
about that shirt, but they will let the students break the dress code
Mhm.
violation with short skirts and leggings and all the other things.
When
But
it's all
when it
under the
comes to-
same.
Yeah. So anyway, so let's talk about the law versus emotions. Because we know, even when I start talking about road rage and people getting angry, that a lot of the things that are said, people say, you provoked me. So, God forbid we get into some of the fighting words. And what are the fighting words? For everybody, it's different.
It's different.
Your fight word is different than
Yeah.
my fight word. And so forth. So law and emotions.
All right. It's one simple thing about the law. If you read the Constitution, if you know about the freedom of speech, the freedom of speech is absolute. You have the absolute right to speak what you want to speak. Now, you said about repercussions and all that. Yes, that's different. But you have the absolute right to speak what you want to speak. The only person that can censor or deem something against a free speech is the government. That now, James said it and everybody else said it. Yes, there's policies, there's things in employment and everything. Yeah, those are things but legitimately, they cannot censor your free speech. They cannot have your speech in their space, as James said, but they cannot censor you for what you're saying.
It is censorship.
Then how do they? How do they get away?
If you don't want my speech in your workspace, isn't that censored?
But here's what I'm saying. Here's what I'm saying.
And that's always been a debate.
I mean, but
Censorship.
that's on personal space. Like we said, that's why I use the illustration of the house.
Yeah.
Because they have a right to set their rules in their house and their guidelines.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
But-
okay. go ahead.
But let me tell you. Now, the company you work for may not believe in Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you believe in, but they cannot stop you from putting up your own personal stuff.
Or from saying Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Mhm.
They cannot stop you. They might say that we as a company, as we as an organization, but you have that absolute freedom to do that.
But why can't you talk about God in the school system?
That you can.
To
But
yourself.
again, there's policy. Now,
Not
now
to the
here's the
students.
thing. That's the thing about policies. Now you can talk about God, Doc V. They really cannot fire you. They really can't, but they will find some other. I guarantee if they fire you, they won't say that for you
Mhm.
speaking out. They'll have other disciplinary
That's right.
actions.
They'll
for-
find some other thing
yeah, they
connected
cannot
to that.
fire you for you talking about God. They're going to
Mhm.
find some other reason
that you're
to
trying
fire
to
you.
push your religion in
Yes,
school.
Mhm.
yes. So they're
Maybe.
going to put it under some other guise.
Yeah.
But you have that absolute right to speak about your God,
Mhm.
and they can't fire you. They'll
Okay.
find some other reason to fire you, but they cannot fire you
So,
for
Doc
speaking
B, you
about
gonna
your
test
God.
that tomorrow? You're gonna have a religious teacher on God in the class tomorrow or what?
I don't know.
You gonna tell them God here?
Go ahead, try it out. Test it.
But here's what I'm saying. So here's what I'm saying, and we're talking about. So what happens is the emotions that we talked about, the emotions of the owners and all the NFL people that got the fans got in the uproar. He disrespecting the flag, this or the other. So the emotional part, and Jill mentioned them people with them letters. Now let's be truthful. A lot of censorship now is coming from when you hurt their feelings, as he said. John Gruden and the baby. David Chappelle said the baby killed the black man. Didn't mess with his career. Not at all. Suffered no downfall in his career. He spoke about those people. He can't work no more. John Gruden talked about a black man's lips. It's all right. When they found him using a derogatory slur against gay people, he had to go.
And that's what David Chappelle said. He said you can shoot a black man, and he used a different word, but you cannot make fun of a gay person.
Here we go, Jill. I'm glad you went there. I got to ask Jill this.
Okay.
Absolute right of freedom. Jill, do you feel that white people have the right to say the N-word?
The right? Do they have a right?
Do they have the right?
They have a right, yes. In my eyes, no. If you're white, you should not say the N-word because it's derogatory.
That's emotional.
On
but
paper,
I just asked, do they have the right?
I have a right to sit here and put you in your place, but I don't because it's not morally correct.
I didn't ask.
Using the N-word is derogatory towards black people. It's derogatory to sing it. It looks trashy if you're dating a black man and you want to be all whatever you are and use it.
Throw your neck
dating
out.
a black man, dating a white man.
No, a black man. If
No, I
you're
just
white.
said it could have been a black woman dating a white man.
Men use it too. White men use it too. So yes, Clarence, to answer your question, you have the right to say whatever you want, but morally and ethically, it looks trashy. It looks uneducated. So don't do that.
That's right.
I'm just saying, you have the absolute right.
I like
now,
that too.
I understand the emotion. Everybody emotional.
Is it a bad word though?
Emotional.
When white people use it, it's derogatory. Yes.
But like
don't
when
like
you
that.
say the word nigga, like nigga or nigger,
Like you don't even sound right saying it.
No, you.
Like,
I mean, but we're talking about the word, man. Let's
I know,
just have
but
some
I'm
real
just saying
talk.
it
Yeah,
didn't
you
even
real
sound
So
right
that the
coming out of your
audience can
mouth.
get it. So why we
Say it like you say it when you with
like
P.
what's happening, my nigga?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like when we saying it to
Can't
each
say it like
other as
Denzel.
black people, or like, or I walk up to you and say, "What's happening, nigger?"
Yeah.
Are you offended because I'm a black man saying it?
I said earlier, I don't believe it should be said. Period. I don't. I don't feel it should be said by anyone
By anyone.
because of
So
the history,
is it a bad
especially
word?
by a white. Is it a bad word?
Yeah, is it a bad word?
I believe when you say it to someone or you call somebody that, you're usually using it in a malicious way,
Yeah,
especially
I'm
if
not
you
just
are white.
I'm not just talking to you, Jill, because the perspective of the other black people
Yeah, I
in
got
the
you.
room as
I got
well.
you. I got you.
Like
I was waiting.
Like it's quiet.
I'm
so
getting
I
ready
need
to
to.
tell you.
I'ma say this.
I was waiting my
I'm
turn.
trying not to overtalk Jill because I think it's important for her
It's a
to get
rarity
her
that I
point
say it.
out.
It's a rarity that I say it. Period.
But
It's a
Because
rarity that you said, E.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So are you offended by it? When a brother walks up to you and say, "What's happening, my
no,
nigga?"
he is.
Well, I mean, no, because I'm gonna tell you like this: it's used as a term
Term of
of endearment. Cool, but at the end of the day, I would tell a person, "Hey, man, why use that? Because there's other words you could be using.
Give us an
Just
example.
Just speak to me. What's up, bro?
That's what he says when the guys walk in the room here. That's what Eric says.
I
every
mean, it's
time.
one of those things that is. It's
So-
other words that you can use.
So
That's
when we talk
What's
about
up,
freedom
guy?
of speech or respecting of speech, so is it a bad word or is it not? Like we get offended if somebody white says it, but if we say it to each other, it's more of a like
It's
an
more-
in-house
it's
word.
love.
It's out of love when
We
that's
crazy.
what they say. But we use it in a derogatory
But
way
we
as
talking
well.
about freedom of speech.
No, but that
Yes, we do.
you're just digging because
No,
he's absolutely right. Because
it's-
when a white person says it's a completely different
No,
context.
hold on. It's sometimes when black people say it, is
Well, I can't speak on that.
well, I can speak on it then.
Well,
When
speak.
sometimes when
Mhm.
whoop your butt, you know what I'm
Just-
saying?
Just say ninja.
I mean, it's just
No.
stuff like
Just-
that.
just
It's the
flip
way
it.
it's the way that's
It's
being
the
used.
censorship.
Yep.
Can I
Okay.
answer that
Yep.
question? Can I
You
answer
you
that?
can- you want to
Can I answer
go
that
ahead.
question?
Raised your
Go ahead.
hand.
Yeah.
Before you answer that, this is Neutral Voices. This is Neutral Voices, and we are having good conversation with great people, and we're talking about the freedom of speech.
And mine is going to be a
Is it
kiss,
free?
real quick. Real quick.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Yes.
Lord.
Sure it is.
No,
Sure.
swear to God. It's it's not a bad word. If it was a word that was illegal or offensive, the government would take that word and say, if you use that word, you're going to be
No, they
punished.
wouldn't.
You
No,
know,
they wouldn't.
dogs
No,
on
they
the
wouldn't.
road.
No, they
You know,
wouldn't.
dogs
Can I finish? Can I finish?
The government is not
Can
going
I
to take
just said
any
these
word
the
away
same
that
people
talks
you
about
said
black
that
people
wouldn't
parents.
pass the
What you
bill.
gotta say?
Can
You
I-
started
Okay,
off
go.
with some bull.
Hold
right
on,
there.
hold on, hold
I'm
on.
just saying.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let me make my point.
Go ahead.
Okay.
So if it's not an illegal word, like we're gonna get in limited words. If it's not an illegal or limited word, that we have a list of limited words, then everybody has the right, no matter what color, no matter what age. Now, how you take it and how we receive it, that's on us. But unless it's a restricted word, I use it all the time. I'm not gonna lie.
You do.
He
I
does.
do.
You slipped.
He does.
You slipped one time right on air.
I did.
You use it in place of the.
No, I don't
No,
use it in
you
place
use
of the.
it in place of
In-
nouns.
I don't use it in
everything.
the. But I use
Okay.
But
it.
it's a free.
Y'all catch me. Y'all catch me on a good day.
Okay, so for me, I'm not offended. Well, I don't really have people that's calling me that,
Right.
not to my face.
So
And
would
if
you
they
be?
saying it
You
to my
wouldn't be a
back.
nigga. You would be like a nigget or something.
Right.
Like,
But-
A niggerette. Niggerette.
like,
But on the
senor
other
and
side,
señorita. You'd be like,
El Negro.
see, they ain't gonna let me be great.
Go ahead, Doctor.
But so for me, I'm not offended even when I'm here. But I just don't like that people overuse it, or that when people are singing an awesome song and it's the bomb and they gotta just drop that in there, and it seems like it just mess up that whole verse. And it's like, now I can't play that song because this part is coming up. When they could have just left that out. They didn't have to do that. So I'm saying when it's used and it's unnecessary. I don't like that. I can't help it.
so
But because you have never met a queen.
the biggest reason why, man, it's
Still
good
haven't
to
met
have
one.
like loose conversation like this, because at the end of the conversation, man, it's all perspective on the word.
Right.
Right.
It's just a point of view.
Right.
Yeah.
So depending on when you're using that word and how you're using
How
that
you
word from
using it.
whatever perspective or point of view changes the word. The
Yeah.
word is the same, just like if you said the word hell.
You're right.
Depending on if you're talking about the place
Mhm.
or
You telling somebody.
the four-letter word,
Right.
That's right.
the reality. So that's the reason why we went there
Yeah.
with that word specifically.
Well, and because it's a big word nowadays. It's so big that now they
Mhm.
just use the letter and it's the N word,
Yeah.
quote, 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 all
So you
around
still,
it.
I mean,
But
you're still
everybody
using that
is,
same
yeah.
way.
And so it's kind of like F. Now, if people not saying the word, is
The initial.
yeah. So it is what it is.
You want that quarter,
Uh,
Jill?
Listen, so yeah, so we have some other stuff, but before we get off that, and something you said, and we were talking about expression, had you guys heard about the hockey situation, and they doing blackface at the hockey thing,
Yes.
and then they were making fun of
Yes.
the black guy when
Yes.
he was in the cage,
Yes.
and they was doing monkey sounds and things like that. So gestures as well, and sounds, and all of those other things fall into expression. So now watch this. Freedom of, now think about this, when you're at a concert,
Mhm.
people stand up, this is their favorite group, whatever, and they're standing up. They have a right to stand up
Right.
and be happy and do whatever. But the person, and so at the cost of this other person's being able to see behind you, and then now the person says, excuse me, can you sit down, please? Because I paid a ticket to see the group.
Yeah.
What
But
do
if
you
I'm
feel
front of
about
you,
that?
I paid a bigger price so I can stand up. My freedom is stand. You should have bought your ticket next to mine.
Yeah,
So-
Not
so
on
my-
Groupon.
You
So
hit.
that, you hit. That freedom doesn't exist with me.
I just wondered because it's the same. Because
I'm not even apologizing for it.
But
You
look,
just hit.
then we see something, and it was they were at a sports game,
Yeah.
and
It
so
was at
something
a,
went down.
SEC, and they would yell F Biden, and they yelled it loud.
Yeah.
It was it was a live telecast
Yes.
that they had to cut.
Beep it out.
They had to beep it out, but they had to cut. I
Yes.
mean, it had gotten so loud that they had to cut, and they came back like 6 plays later because it was still going on.
Yeah, and I'm just saying. So we have personal stories and situations, and maybe we could share some tomorrow
Yeah.
during our comments. But I know for me, I've had that at a sports game, and just because I was cheering for one team, I got a beer thrown on my back because I wasn't cheering for the I guess their team.
I got
So so when we say that, yeah, so things can happen to us.
You
So
must was
those are
at a
the.
Cowboys game or something.
I'm just saying. So those are the
You should have tripped
consequences. and
yourself.
Some of them.
It's a free
Uh,
ticket.
Anyway, so when we start talking about limitations of freedom, because there's limits to boundaries. Now,
Right.
I say that that's a good thing.
Yes.
We need to have limitations and boundaries, but
Right.
where can you say it maybe it hurts? And let's give some examples.
Well, before we go, and since I just got off the law, now legally there are some restricted words, and there's some things you cannot do. Like you cannot yell fire in a crowded theater.
Ooh.
You cannot do that. That's restricted
What
speech.
if the
You
building
cannot
on
But
say
you
fire?
can
bomb.
while you in the backyard
I mean,
grilling.
Yeah.
My
well,
question is,
if-
what if the building on fire? Well, I
Well,
can't say it.
You
Yeah.
can
if,
then.
if it's inside now,
You gotta let the whole building burn down because you want
This
You gotta
dude,
let the
this
building
dude,
burn?
this
See,
dude.
that's why we're trying to educate because there are
I'm just
people
saying.
out
Go
there
ahead,
like
C-Stats.
him.
Go ahead, C-Stats.
Yeah.
If
Keep
it's
But-
on fire, you can pull the fire alarm.
But you can't say bomb on
That's
the
right.
airplane.
Yeah.
Y'all remember what was the movie Meet the Fockers?
Oh, yeah?
When he said you said bomb on the airplane,
And he
but I
said-
didn't have a bomb. He said bomb, 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 bomb.
Yeah, I knew you was gonna
But
say that.
but yeah, you can't say so things that incite violence
And that's very serious.
are obscene. It's public obscenity.
Yeah.
That could cause a riot,
Mhm.
which President Trump should be answering for January 6th.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that you just cite right. So there
Yes.
are limitations, and I think we got a list of.
I definitely got a list. So real quick, I'm gonna go through these, and I'm gonna say these fall under just it's a whole bunch of them. So anyway, so incitement,
Mhm.
true threats, fighting words, obscenity, defamation, harassment, hecklers, indecent
Mhm.
conversation. And we didn't talk about that. We need to talk about that, and hate speech.
Right.
Yeah. So there's a whole lot of stuff that falls in those categories. Just in case we don't get to them tonight, then we can conversate a little bit more in depth about them tomorrow night on Voice of the People. But
I got
yes,
one.
so limitations. What do you got?
Limitations, like I said, but I think defamation.
Mhm.
You can't be liable, and that's defamation. Where thing it's not free for me to say anything that's not true about you,
Or slander.
and I say it in a
So you
public
can say it if it's true,
I can say it if it's true,
and you just
But I
out
can't-
there putting it all
right?
out on Facebook
Right, but
and
I
everything.
cannot make something up about you.
Okay.
Defamation
That's-
of character.
That's defamation
Yes,
of character or
yes.
liable. Like I could, the common thing is, I saw Doc V with so and so and
Hanging
so
out
and
with
so,
the
and
Dallas Cowboys.
yeah,
Just
and,
lying.
and I'm just lying, and I put names on it. I put all of that. Now, if it comes to the fact, now liable is hard to prove, but in defamation, but you can be sued, and it's not protected by free speech.
But in order for me to sue you, I have to prove that
is
it's
Mhm.
a lie,
false,
yeah.
one,
Yeah.
and then I have to prove something else, I think.
Libel or slander. You have
Yeah,
to be able to
that-
prove
Yeah.
actual defamation,
Yeah.
I believe.
And it's in the context of what they said.
That's
you know,
right.
Like you can't sue me if I call you fat and ugly and you fat and ugly. You can't sue me for that. You might be mad,
Well,
but
hold
you
on.
can't sue me about that.
I can because she might not be fat and ugly to somebody else.
No, that go back to your emotions, bro.
Yeah,
That's
that
just-
go
you
back
just
to your
being-
emotions. That go back to your
you
emotions.
just being emotional.
I'm
I
just
think
being
that's
real.
it.
Emotional.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I'm just saying. I'm just trying to get an understanding.
I'm just
That's it.
saying.
I'm just trying
Yeah,
to
and
get
that's
an
what I'm saying.
understanding.
So that's why that's a hard one for a lot of people, and people have talked about defamatory,
Yeah.
situations, but you can't prove it a lot of times, and sometimes you can't prove
Well,
the damage,
and
like how it damaged
Yeah,
you.
and it also depends on how it's presented. Now, if I
Mhm.
print it or if I say it's something, liable or defaming somebody's character on this platform, all they got to do is pull up this platform and be able to see it. And it's my burden to say how I meant what I was saying. So, and it's easy now because y'all put everything on Facebook.
I'm
Y'all-
getting ready. So you start talking about Facebook. So let's real quick touch it and go bullying, because a lot of times that's what people are putting on when they say stuff and they make comments, and people look at that, and so we know bullying is broad. And so when you start thinking about that, let's think of harassing people and saying different comments to people that really cause them to feel a certain way. That's happening a lot on social media.
Right. But first and foremost, bullying is not a crime. I can
Right, but
say it.
this is not that conversation.
Okay, but I'm gonna get there with you.
Right, but
Now-
this conversation is about the terms and the
Right,
word
right,
choice
right.
and how
And
people make
and
other
I still have
people
the right.
feel.
I still have the right to express whatever it is on
Yes.
Facebook. I have the right to express that.
Mhm.
Now, how you take it? Now, if what is malicious? That's one of the things you
Mhm.
have to. Another term and things we got to talk. Just because you take it as malicious doesn't mean I meant it as malicious.
But
you
what
cannot.
if I can prove your intent?
You cannot. You cannot prove inference by words. If I didn't say it to your face, you cannot prove inference by words.
But if it was face to face and you said it,
Yes.
that's when it becomes fighting words.
Yes.
Because now you close enough to provoke me, and I don't have time
Right.
to go home and think.
Right.
Emotions again.
Emotions again.
Emotions
Yes.
again.
But
Your emotions,
but
Yes.
your feelings.
but
That's
but
right.
you cannot take an inference from words. How I type it, how you read it, 10 different people gonna read it different ways.
Mm-hmm.
You got a point.
Yeah.
So I have the right to
So-
say whatever.
Okay.
That's what I'm saying. The freedom of speech, and I'm gonna stand on that. It's absolute by the law. You
Well,
just gotta prove it or
You
get off
done
your
right.
feelings.
You really do. But at what cost? I mean, I'm just
At
keep
what
telling
cost?
you.
It goes back.
At what
At
cost?
what cost? What we got next, Doc V?
Well, since it's probably time to go, I got to save my other points for tomorrow night. You know how it goes. Real quick, can we? And that's where I was going. It says media role, so I was pulling in social media and then taking it to, let's say, the streets. So the camera. How can media manipulate and sway our freedom of speech? We know they can twist words. They do that all the time.
Or just censor it completely, even
Yes.
though, I mean, they have their ways. I mean, they can do it through, like, you see a lot now of the fact checking, or you see a lot of, like, the stuff that's covered up and you click on it and it's a quote, like a Democrat, ridiculous
Or
stuff.
they remove videos.
They are literally removing everything. I got a violation the other day for something absolutely ridiculous. Well, I thought it was ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, it feels like every day we are being censored, whether it be religious or political or something based on race. And you know, that was my question to you earlier. How are they able to censor that?
Well, Twitter, or was it Instagram? One of the guys, I think it was Instagram, he was on the Breakfast Club. And this is a thing about inference. And first of all, let me tell you this. The media role, they don't censor anything. Some do and some don't. It depends on what platform you're watching. Depends on who it's being delivered to. Because we watched that cartoon, the little cartoon. If there was censorship, they wouldn't show the cartoon of all these, gay people or this little. So there's no censorship.
Well, they don't feel like anything's wrong with that. That's why they're not censoring.
Yeah, I agree with C Stats. What they do is
yeah.
though is they control the narrative
Right. Right.
from their point of view.
Yeah.
Right.
That's
So,
right.
but just like your job, social media cannot censor what you say because you cannot infer what I'm saying just by words. My intent is not putting those words. You can't look at those words. He meant this like this. But what they do is, like Jill said, they put up these things and like
Send you
Facebook.
warnings.
Yeah. In Facebook right now, they're taking down all the stuff that's counter to whatever this COVID thing is going. If it's counter to what they're saying, they're taking it down and they're putting it for misinformation. That's another thing that's not protected by the freedom of speech. So they use the right words, misinformation. So that's what they're using it for. So they take these things down, but it's not misinformation when a lot of it is fact based, but it doesn't go with the narrative as James was saying. So now it's misinformation, so they can take it down.
That's right.
Trump. He was taken off because of harassment, misinformation, and all that other stuff. So that's why he's not on there. Did he have the right to say all the stuff he said? Yes. But they use different words, misinformation, intimidation, things like that, obscenities. So it's free, but it depends on what they wrap it up in, how they're going to take it away from you.
Exactly. All right. Well, we had a lot going on, a lot to talk about. I'm not sure how long we've been talking, but just keep this thought in mind. Tomorrow, we want to talk about morals and get into that. And is there anything else anybody want to share before we get off and before we turn it over to Jill so she can do her thing? Is that it? Okay, we're good. All right. So yes, Jill, honey, please give us something good. You have the freedom to speak.
Regardless of any law or amendment that tells us what we should say and what we shouldn't say, we as a people should be following one law, God. Kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy for the body. But what comes out of the mouth proceeds from the heart, and this defiles a person. For your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Your speech may be free, but it's powerful. Words can heal, hurt, encourage, devalue, motivate, break hearts, calm souls. Words can bring you to life. Words can kill. Kindness, love are always free, always the right choice for your voice.
I love that.
I
I
love
love
too.
that. Thank you so much. And before we go, I want to leave you with this. And I'm so glad you put a sprinkle of God in there because I want to close with this particular scripture. This is Proverbs 17:28, and it says, and I want everybody to make note, take close notes of this, especially E. It says,
Oh, you know,
this got a lot of love on it though.
No, no.
It says,
I'm telling you.
17:28, even fools are thought wise when they keep silent with their mouths shut. They seem so intelligent.
Well, you need to.
Yes,
You need to shut
this
your
is
mouth.
Neutral
You
Voices.
need to close your mouth.
Hey, Jill.
Thank you for hanging
Not
out with
saying
us
it.
tonight.
I got a quarter, Jill. Come on.
I'm
Come
not
on, Jill.
saying it.
I got a whole
Join
quarter.
us tomorrow for the Voice of the People.
Some of us tomorrow.
Yeah, everybody may not show up.
Come on, Jill. Got a whole quarter. I dare you.